Well, hi, and welcome to the 13th episode of the Keen Minds podcast. This is the third and final part of our Tom and Liz segment. By the way, I'm Jen, aka Takata Psycho.
And I am Tessa from Criminally Sane. And I am so excited to continue this. This from 301 to 408, we really have gone, this is the road up. So it's a lot more fun to analyze than, a lot more positive to analyze than when you're just talking about the bad things.
And the interesting thing is, when you look at the bad things 4 seasons in, when you were in the middle of them, what is it, Red? When you're chest deep in filth,
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the middle of it, it looks terrible. But 4 seasons in, with all of this information that we have now, you look back and so much looks different.
Yes.
It shines the light on things to such a degree. It doesn't mean that the actions were necessarily better, but you can understand the thought process behind the actions a little bit better, and at least come to the conclusion and the understanding that, okay, this person isn't just evil. They did this because of this. Yes, it would have been fantastic if they had taken a different route, but it makes more sense.
Indeed. We're starting this one from when Tom comes back to help Liz. And I love that he just, as soon as he heard, he just turned around and he went straight. He goes first to Wrestler.
Well, it's interesting because I got the impression at the end of season 2 when he leaves that he feels like Bud's people are breathing down his neck, which they probably are at that point. He feels trapped. He tells Liz when she wants him to stay to go after and drop off, he goes, I can't stay. And so
yeah, Bud is after him.
Yeah, he's in a corner and he's running. But just as you said, as soon as he hears that Liz is in trouble, because when he leaves, as far as he's aware, she got what she needed to clear her name. She's going in. She's clearing her name. She's going back to the FBI. She is in the best place that she possibly can be. Yes, he'd prefer that she had gone with him and they could have had their, time on the boat and, run away together. But he also...
And it was a naked boat, too.
have their naked boat scenarios. But... They're 2 adults that had to make the decisions that were best for them, and he thought she was safe. As soon as he found out she was not actually safe, turned around, came back, and went to the man that I think, last he actually saw him, said that he was going to come after him and put him in prison.
Yep. They had that fun shoving match at the end in the Decemberist.
Yep, and then it comes back around and you get another shoving match at the beginning when Tom first comes back in season 3. Which is funny. Mm-hmm. I like to make this comment because a lot of people don't think about it. Tom has never made the first physically aggressive motion towards Wrestler. All 3 times that they've ended up in a on-screen fight, I don't remember about the cut scene from the director part 1. Mm. But I do know that in the Decemberist, in the 2 fight scenes, the shoving scene here and the fight scene outside of Cooper's, yes, Tom snarked. He definitely started, at least 2 out of the 3 times, he verbally started it. But every time, Wrestler's the first one to get hands-on there and get physically aggressive.
Well, we know Wrestler is a hothead. He's an impulsive guy. I don't know that Tom is that impulsive, but yeah, I mean, in their fun scenes, I mean, from here we go into Numgate. I mean, how could not know that? We all love Numgate.
I love how Spoonie with Tien is the one that grabbed that name and ran with it with her fan fiction. It was fantastic. She's my Tesla partner in crime, so...
Yeah, that was a fun thing, and I find it interesting that as we continue in there, we see Wrestler turns him down. He goes and tells Cooper, and Cooper is like, yeah, he uses a very interesting phrase for this, and we will go into that when we go into the post office and we analyze all of the post office members towards the Keens. But basically, he's using a scene from LA Confidential about basically comparing Tom to an undercover cop, which is, little thing. I'm not sure what it means. It may mean nothing. It may just be a nod to a great movie. But other than that, they finally, the first thing we actually know about them is Liz hears from Aram that Tom came back. And I love that moment. That was a very, very interesting moment. I would love to hear your take.
She didn't expect it. I mean, that much is very obvious, and she was excited. I mean, you could tell that it was unexpected, and just hearing his name was kind of a rush of relief. Like, she didn't want him to be in danger. She didn't want him to give up his dream for her. But the fact that he did is just another confirmation that he loves her, and that was real. It was the same as him walking into the courthouse in season 2. The fact that he's come back again and again, it's just another time that he's come back, put what she would consider his life on hold, and dropped everything to come help her without any expectations in return.
No strings attached.
Yeah, and so I think it's just another confirmation for her. The Tom that she married, while there were a lot of lies there were also a lot of truths there. And the man that she knows is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that for me it was like Liz had one of the best times. She got to see Aram. Aram told her she looked great. They hugged, and actually Aram was happy to see her. And she heard that Tom had come back for her. It was a great moment. And on the other end, we see Tom being approached by Cooper. He gives the number to the waitress, and I think we have to talk a little bit about those moments with the waitress, because they're very cute moments, and it's funny. They give a story. I don't know if that story is true or not.
There has to be at least a level of truth to it. I mean, because Liz knew to call the phone. Mm-hmm. And so that's Wing Yee's. We know that they have a history with Wing Yee's because, Liz goes there every year for her birthday. Tom talked about dropping by and getting Chinese their first night in the townhouse, which was Miss Wing Yee's. That seems to be their go-to, their spot. Maybe not their, they talked about
the passion fish.
Yeah, passion fish for their anniversary. But, their go-to spot during the week was just them. It's relaxed, it's casual. And then we've seen the place now, and it's pretty relaxed and casual. That was Wing Yee's for them. It was theirs. And so, I mean, there has to be something to it. I don't know how much, because I really can't see the Tom Keen that we knew from season 1, the persona that he put on. I have a really hard time picturing him helping Liz cheat on her boyfriend. And so I imagine that there was, maybe it was at the very tail end of the relationship and there was some ambiguity there, and, it was kind of iffy there. I don't know. There's a lot of ifs and ands, because apparently the actor that plays Nick has confirmed that Liz cheated on Nick. I mean, so I would assume if he confirmed it that he has some sort of inside source on that.
We know that because we see that when Tom and Nick meet, they say, "Well, the last time I saw you were in your underwear making coffee in her kitchen."
Well, I mean, that doesn't mean that they were technically dating at the time. He could have been by to pick up some of his stuff.
Yeah, but I have a feeling that in Tom's enter Liz's life, I don't think we have learned everything. And I know that a lot of people imagine all this kind of dark things, and it was an assignment and he was ordered to. I don't think he was. He was working for Red at that time, and I think that his job was to protect her. think he was falling in love with her, watching her from a distance. They have obviously met, he was supposed to be a friend of a friend. I think that he saw something in somewhere, in some one of the men that Liz was interested or dating that he didn't like. And I think, and this is my headcanon, there's nothing that I can prove that he actually went in and met Liz to get her away from this guy. And I don't think he expected. He was maybe attracted to her, but I think he was telling himself, it's just a job. I'm just keeping her safe. And I think that, that it goes to that comment. I didn't want it to work. I knew that I had you. Because he had an objective that was job related. Save Liz was not being safe, and we know the kind of man she was going for. I mean, Nick is a nice guy, but he seems a little. He took.
He's a surgeon. I mean, so he's gonna have some sociopathic tendencies there because he'd have to be able to be good at what he does, and he obviously had no issue with leveraging Red's life for how much was it? I mean, it was
300, 600, 364,000 or something of the sort.
Yeah, it was quite a bit of money. Good chunk of change.
Yeah. And Tom did tell him, don't take that money.
He tried.
Yeah, Tom's advice. But I thought it was interesting because it also took a very, very, he denies being a doctor for Liz because Liz didn't accept his marriage proposal. So there is a little bit of a little reckless, a little controlling man in Nick that I see. And I think that, at least in my head, when Tom got involved with Liz, it was partly him being attracted to Liz and him doing his job of saving Liz because he was concerned. He was starting to fall for her and he was concerned.
It could be, yeah. I hope we get more on that because, especially if you read the dossier, there's some very conflicting information that doesn't make a lot of sense there. Because the dossier it says that they were set up on a blind date. And Liz says in season 1 that they met at a coffee house. There's a lot of information that, yes, it could fit together, but as of right now, it doesn't look like it does, if that makes sense. And so I hope that they do go into that for some reason, and they might. Redemption could open up a lot of areas for it to very organically get mentioned, when suddenly Tom's part of this team and he's the lone person with a family, back home. He's going to get some curious questions, I'm sure. There are ways to organically put that in. With Liz, it almost would feel forced, but I feel like Redemption might be a place that they could do that without it.
Or as we explore more Katerina and Red.
Yeah, exactly. There are definitely ways they can do it, and I hope that they take advantage of that. And I'm sure if it fits the storyline, they will. And so,
but they get that phone call. He gets caracured, and he's getting caracured, and Liz calls, and that phone call to me is a very important phone call because there's a lot of connotations around it. I would love to take your character analysis in there. They did it very well. The symbolism is so rich.
They did, and you can hear he's got that tougher sort of accent that I guess we were talking about South Chicago accent, going when he's talking to Asher Sutton, and he picks up the phone and he answers it, and suddenly it's Liz, and it all just washes away, and his voice is softer, his mannerisms are softer, he's worried. It's Tom standing there, which is interesting because when Red's describing how good Tom is at deep cover work, the fact that he doesn't even know who he is, he becomes that person. He no longer has the ability to do that, I don't think, because as soon as Liz is thrown in there, he loses the ability to stay deeply in that cover without breaking it. And so she's able to snap him out of the cover immediately, which is interesting, and that's certainly something that will weigh moving forward, I'm sure. And it was... I loved the way that Liz said, but you wanted out of the danger. You wanted out of this life, out of the danger. I mean, so it was setting up for this, I laughed at the time. I said, well, Tom's going to get shot or stabbed or blown up or something by the end of this. And he, got beaten to
He
hell.
didn't.
No, he got beaten up pretty badly. But, but the dangers of that life, which also came around with Gina, because that is that life. But it was interesting because to him, I don't think that everything's worth it for Liz. There's no price too high for him to pay for her. And I think that that's what that highlights.
That scene, yes, that was, and I know that you look at it from Tom's point of view, and yes, I mean, it's that change. It also it's actually the first time that we see Tom, other than Dresden, doing an in out of character so quickly. Because we see him preparing for the character with Cooper, then we see him with in the character of Wainwright, ready to drop, and then suddenly there is he's back to being Tom, and then hangs the phone and he's back being Wainwright. To me, that was fascinating. And for me, I looked at that and that also from Liz's perspective, because Liz it's funny. She comes in and she calls the place. And why does she make that call that precise moment? Because she went to see the djinn, and the djinn asked about her fantasy. And her fantasy is her husband, and her husband is Tom. They're not married at that point, and they're not even together at that point. But when she looks at that fantasy, her fantasy is Tom. She goes to that. That what is fulfills that fantasy. And immediately she goes, she picks up this dress that is so reminiscent of, funnily, of the Bubble Girl, a dressy, gauzy dress that is very like 70s, and goes and calls Tom. So to me, that tells me that she was already in that space of being together, even if they really weren't.
Yeah, I think that that's the last bit where she keeps it. Kind of like when they sat there on his boat when he's patching her up after Drop-Off dies.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sitting there and talking, and he's trying to make sure she knows all the dangers that, when she says, why didn't I get on this? Why didn't I get on your boat? Why didn't I get on your boat? I want to run away with you. And he says, basically sits there and lists out the dangers of, basically, I want you to do this, but here is what's going to happen. I feel like this is kind of Liz doing the exact same thing. Like, she wants him there. It was a good thing that he came back for her. Mm-hmm. But she also doesn't want him sabotaging his own life. They're putting each other first, which is, for Liz, huge.
Yeah. Yeah. It's to me, from that point where he comes back, this is the truth now. It's coming out, and it's not that they just go up and up and up. They're going to go up and down. It's, they're actually very well written characters. Then we see Liz, they next time I think they see each other is in the comic book, because then that's the djinn. After that, it's Ariel Kane, and Liz is almost killed by Solomon, and they go into, that's when the comic book of the arsonist happens.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird timing because it's Christmas and yet it wasn't Christmas in canon. From what I understand, the comics are considered sub-canon. They're not considered main canon. But I think the gist of it is supposed to be true, I mean...
Well, it's that when they started the comic books, Megan was pregnant, so they had to adjust. But yeah, I mean, it was supposed to be in between. It was supposed to be Christmas.
Yeah, and so I that's one of my favorite phone calls. They have the Keen Squared side of the fandom loves our Keen Squared phone calls, and that's one of my very favorites of theirs. Is the Christmas ornament and talking and reminiscing about their first Christmas together, and how, and once again we've talked multiple times about them finding their own brand of normal,
Hmm.
and I think that kind of reaches back to that because first Christmas as a couple, you expect it to be romantic, you expect it to be, perfect. It's kind of like when she had Agnes, what did you
Hmm.
expect the birth of your baby to be? Magical. And like, but that's kind of, you expect the first Christmas you have with your husband to be that way. And the light, for those that haven't read the comic, the story goes that there were 3 days with the lights out. They were snowed in. They couldn't get out. They ran out of candles, and
They
all the
were
food went
cold.
bad. It was freezing cold, snow piled outside, no food, and that Tom pulled out this little gingerbread man Christmas tree ornament that he had made with his class, and when he taught
His
elementary
class has
school.
made for him. Yeah, his class has made for him.
Yeah,
It was a gift. Yeah.
and it says the Keens on it, and she said that was the best Christmas ever. And as they're talking to each other, you see the ornament in the background on the tree. It's really cute.
Yeah,
But I
and
think it's
it's important because she says it was the best Christmas together because it was real.
yeah. She talks about how for just a moment his accent changed, and she realizes looking back on it that she was talking to him, that he had dropped the act, and that Christmas together meant something to him at his core. And what I was going to say is, I think it goes back to the idea that they had this idea for this perfect life with the picket fence and
Mhm.
the house and the dog and the 8 to 5 jobs and this and that, and that's not their normal. That's never going to be their normal because of who they are. And this Christmas, where everything went wrong, but they found that little kernel of hope there and they clung to it, it became the best Christmas ever. And
Mhm.
so I think that that's just the Keens in a nutshell. Nothing goes as planned, everything gets thrown into chaos, and yet at the core of it, they're still there, and it becomes that perfect moment for them.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a very defining little scene. To me, the comics, I know that they're not like 100% canon, but to me they are. They really capture very well that relationship. And the other moment we have in the comic, which to me it's very interesting because it's one of those few things where you see Red totally out of character. He's talking and he's like, uh, he's giving Liz a little story about looking at the stars and then forgetting to look at the stars. And years pass, and then he looks at the stars, and the stars are still there. And meanwhile, when he arrives, Liz had been looking at a picture of her and Tom. That picture where he has the arm around her, and Red is thoroughly oblivious. I mean, he doesn't even see that Liz is really wistful and really, sad and wish him that he could be with him. That's after they have their cold. They're already in looking for the formal cabal member. So that's a it's a tiny little moment for Liz that she's there, and they're obviously she's still thinking about that. And from there on is the meeting at the restaurant.
Yeah, when they talk and they set the meat, and it's one of my favorite parts of that is where he says, "Well, I should go," and she reaches across and stops him, and you Tom gets these looks on his face, and I've mentioned them on my blog on Tumblr. There are just these little looks that he gets where it's almost like he feels like he needs to pinch himself. He's not
Mm.
quite sure he's willing to believe that he's getting a second chance, that he sees it, it's sitting right in front of him, it's blatantly obvious, but he's not quite willing to believe it, probably because he's had a horribly crappy life and has been let down more than
Mm.
enough. And he probably doesn't feel like he deserves it, I could imagine, but he gets one of those looks there when she reaches out and touches his hand there and stops him from getting up. Because I mean, he's gonna go do his job,
Hmm.
and it was
And
just
saving her. It's a very sweet scene to me. Also because we after that we have Liz looking at a family with a baby, and we know now in retrospect, they're preparing us for Liz being pregnant. If we hadn't figured it out by
well,
now.
and that's another thing about that scene that I just love, because when she sits down, she kind of shields
Hmm.
herself, and he says, you're gonna
That's
it'll
gonna
be
stop.
okay. That's gonna stop. You're going to have that normal life. You're gonna have this. You're gonna have that. And I love how reassuring he is to her. He always has done that. And there's I know that the it wasn't the final script, because it didn't, a lot of things got cut for the pilot, but a version of the pilot script was floating around for a while on the internet,
Hmm.
and there was this lovely little talk between them when she calls him from the post office, right, when she gets there, and she's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't remember verbatim what it was, but he basically says, I've never seen you fail at anything. You've got it.
Yes, I've seen
and
that.
and it's beautiful, because that's, once again, that's just kind of them in a nutshell, that he is annoyingly positive and he always kind of reminds her, he gives those the little nudges that she needs.
Hmm.
And so it's a very nice quality of his. And I know that in season 1, Red thought it was all fake and that he was trying so hard, and yes, he was trying hard, but it's because Tom felt like Liz deserved that. He loved her, and so he
Well,
did try hard.
I think that we're now. I mean, you're forced to look at the relationship between Tom and Liz, and between Tom and Red in a very different way now, because what the information we have, and you have to see that Red is seeing so much of his own life in Tom. I have a feeling that for Red it didn't turn out so good, or maybe he was not able to forgive. Red is not exactly the forgiving kind, as we know, as Kate Gate shows.
Kate Gate.
Kate Gate.
I like that one. Don't like what happened. I like the phrasing. But and so you have Liz at the table saying, I want you to follow your dream, and Tom's response of, that's what I'm trying to tell you, Liz, I am. And so I think that that's kind of where they get back on the same page with that. That's their moment of, yes, I understand the consequences, but it's worth it. And she understands that he's not looking at this through rosy colored glasses,
Mm-hmm.
which is, it's helpful moving forward. And I think that helps give them. That's if he had sat there and told her that he expected something, and if he had shown up when she was cleared, because he didn't show up when she was cleared. Only Red was there, and he was on his boat making sure she was okay, but giving her space. And I think all of that
Oh,
combined.
those scenes we have to touch. We have to touch in several scenes of Tom alone. We have to touch on Tom in getting character, because
Yeah.
that scene is that's a classic. That is, I mean, there are few, you love your parallels. I love my parallel scenes. I love them with passion, and you get such a good one because Liz is, she's left the restaurant. Red is trying to get her exonerated. She knows that Tom is helping to, and at the same time now her post office people are hunting her, and slowly she knows that Aram will help her, but she will Aram will tell Wrestler, because that's the kind of person Aram is. She knows that she can count on Samar because Samar has seen what's going on. Wrestler is still hunting her, but she has her 3 men that she counts on.
Her
That
boys.
yeah, her boys. She has Red, she has Tom, she has Aram, and all 3 will help her, each in their own individual way. But I think that the fear is starting to subside, and we see that in Kings of the Road. Like, they're both a little better, a little less edgy.
Well, I mean, so much had happened between them, and at that point, they really hadn't had, like, I think that they both, by that point, knew it was real. And I made a post the other day, something clicked with me, that when Liz and Tom were on his boat, when they had the naked boat scene, she knew she loved him. There wasn't any question there. They knew they loved each other. They knew they wanted to get to know the real them. But I don't think that she was in a place to be able to be okay with his darker side on a lot of things until she took a walk in his shoes. Tom's a runner. He admitted that to her in season 2. He's been running all of his life. Since 14 years old, he's been running. I get the impression he's been doing that a lot longer than that. He just doesn't realize it. But Liz spent 3 months of her life on the run, and she described it to Red as just being exhausted after it. And so, and when Red says, well, that's been the last 20 years of my life, And I think that Liz kind of puts together what a difficult life Tom has had. That's been his world nonstop, looking over his shoulder, adjusting for this, adjusting for that, using this person, working that angle, all in hopes of just surviving. And I think that kind of clicks with her. And I think that that's one of the reasons that she's able to get to know him. And I think that there's a lot of time we don't see in a lot of conversations that they allude to in season 3. Because I know that one of my big fears with the baby arc, and I was foursquare against the baby arc until Agnes was born. Like, Agnes was on the scene and in her arms, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm over this. It's on the screen. She's adorable. I'm watching these parents. We're okay now. But the reason I was so against it was because I was terrified they were going to use Agnes to gloss over Tom and Liz getting to know the real them and fast forward. Because I understand that TV, there's a certain lack of patience. When you sit down to read a novel, you expect a certain pacing. You sit down to watch a spy / FBI TV show, you expect much faster pacing, you expect adventure. And so sometimes people get bored when you take the time that you need, and I understand that. I'm aware of that. And so I was worried that they were going to handle it poorly. I didn't have faith in the writers. I have since learned my lesson. But they dropped all these nice little hints, but I think that Liz got to the point that she could understand Tom, could understand where he was coming from by taking a walk in his shoes for 3 months and running and being on the run and seeing that world, not just as a close spectator, but as someone living in it. It changed her.
Exactly. Yeah. I also think that there were some interesting scenes on Tom's side. I mean, this was the first time, I think, in Tom's life that he was able to use his abilities to help the woman he loved. I'm sure that some of Tom's, I mean, he's not a hire killer. That would be like, asking a top programmer to write you a code for a simple app. I mean, I'm sure he can do it, but that doesn't mean that that's who he is. He's an undercover agent. That's a very specialized. That's more or less what Katerina was, an undercover agent. This is the first time that he has actually been able to do what he does to help Liz openly. It's an interesting moment because he goes to get Karakurt. He knows he's gonna get killed. We have that scene where he has to kill Asher Sutton, and maybe we should do a little a fast take on that, because I think it's an important thing, and a lot of what people have against Tom, it's that scene, and it's an important scene for Tom's character development.
It absolutely is, because it's the first time we really start seeing remorse. Because when he killed Eugene Ames, his response was, I don't even remember his name. I mean, it was, this man is between Liz and being free. He is a danger to Liz. Kill him. Asher Sutton was essentially in his way of getting Karakurt to protect Liz. I think that we see the growth between Ames and Asher tremendously, because the first thing Tom does is try to convince them to let Asher go. You know, he's not a part of this, he has nothing to do with this, and then he doesn't actually start fighting in earnest until Asher draws blood. They hand Asher the knife, Asher takes a swipe at him.
He says they're going to kill us both if we don't fight.
Yeah. And Asher seems to really believe that, and maybe they would have, maybe they wouldn't have, but, I mean, Tom...
I think they would.
Oh, I think they would have to, but I'm just saying Tom doesn't know that for sure, and so he's trying to play a different angle there that gets them both out alive.
Mm-hmm.
And Asher basically doesn't give him a choice. It became Tom or Asher, and
I think he could. I think that had Asher follow his lead, they may have been able to get out of
oh no,
alive.
I agree. But that's what I'm saying, is that Asher didn't go that route.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had two very skilled fighters, because obviously Asher was a skilled fighter because he'd gotten that far. And
Mm-hmm.
you have a bunch of thugs sitting around, you know, probably half drunk by noon, you know, cheering on this fight. And most of them would have taken off. If they turned around and started swinging the chain their way. But Asher didn't go that route.
Yeah, they got a nice chain there to use.
I would have used it. That would have been my first thought. Anyway, but so Asher didn't give him that option. He came at him with a knife, and what did people expect Tom to do? Lay down and die? Okay, he lays down and dies. Nothing happens. Asher probably still gets killed.
Asher was a dead man.
Karakurt stays there, and Liz eventually dies because Karakurt's key to getting her free. And so, I mean, I'm not sure what people expected him to do. Well, people have unrealistic expectations for Tom because hate blinds, but regardless, he was in a no-win scenario at that point.
No, and I want to say something about that whole scenario. The reason why Tom chooses Asher Sutton is because Asher Sutton has this fascination with with hustler, with people who fight for their life, and he goes to Asher Sutton, and there's a point where he knows what he's going to do. He's going to go and he's going to draw them back to him. He does the same thing that Red does. You create a problem and then you solve it. So that's what he does. He creates a problem for the Russian enforcer and then solves it because they are going to come back at him. But Asher tells him that he contracted a detective, and the detective body parts were found all over the mountains. Gwen tells them that he's never going to stop, that he's drawing $10,000 a month or $20,000, I think it's $20,000 a month cash to give to the Russian enforcer, and he's late, he can't make that payment, and the enforcer is already telling him that this is not a negotiation, you have to pay. And what is it? That is a fight club. People fight to death. And what Asher Sutton did with his very dangerous Russian mafia is he refused to throw a fight, and they lost a lot of money. And you don't cross the Russian Bratva and live to tell it. The only reason he was alive still was because he was he had $20,000 a month to give. And when he run out of it, or when his family run out of it, or whatever it was, he would have been sent to one of those fight to death, and then his body parts would have ended up in the mountains as a way to tell the others, you pay, or you do what we ask you to do, or this is how you end. So it doesn't, however bad and awful that scene was, Asher Sutton was a dead man walking. Tom saved Gwen. That's probably more that would have happened if he hadn't been in that situation, because probably they would have got married. They were about to get married. They would have gotten her too.
Yeah.
They would have taken her kid,
I was gonna
and
say
they
any
would have
kids
sold
they
the
had.
kid. Yeah, they would have sold the kids into flesh peddlers. They, she would have been sold into sexual slavery. This was not going to end well, no matter how you look at it. And in fact, doesn't Cooper say that they've been trying to take this ring down and they can't pin anything because they're all psychopaths and nobody will talk against them?
Yeah, they just couldn't find an inn to get into them. And so Tom found the inn. He got in. He got
They
in
killed them all.
record time. I
They
mean,
killed them all.
and so it's, while I think that he would have preferred to have gotten Asher out, and he tried to get Asher out, in the end, the situation was what it was. And it wasn't a great situation, but, like you said, Asher kind of got himself into that. It's not like Tom was the one that got him to double-cross
Mm-hmm.
the Russian mafia.
Yeah. I love the scene where he takes a gun from the Russian guy in the car and then kills him with it. That was beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was so sure that Gwen was working with the Russian mafia. I was so disappointed when that wasn't the case.
Really? I never got that from her.
Uh,
Blacklist makes you question everybody.
Yeah, it's true, and some are red herrings. You have to be willing to accept them. But yes, I mean that was a very nice moment. And then he gets in there. He does the same bravado that Red does. Red is telling, right. We have the scene where Red is telling Peter, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and then the cabal is going to ask me to kill you. And you have one chance to save yourself, and he doesn't take it. And exactly that happens. And then the next scene is Tom telling him, well, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to go for Tiny Tim, then this one is going to shoot, but it's not going to shoot me. It's going to shoot one of yours, and then this and that. And that entire ring is dissolved. And, I see Tom's actions as actually, yes, he got Asher Sutton. Asher Sutton got himself killed by his own actions, but he saved all the other young men that were going to fall in there needing money or needing the thrills, and ended up paying with their lives or something else. So I don't.
Not to mention whatever it was that they were peddling. I mean, they probably were peddling drugs and
Drugs.
Other, yeah. I mean,
it was a crime and extortion. Yeah. It was illegal fights, drugs, extortion. It's mafia. It's what it is. And the Russian mafia is among the most ruthless they are. So that was, to me, I was fine. I was shocked that it had to happen. And we also see that scene, Red killing Caligari later with a knife in the chest, in the neck, and the same thing with Tom and Asher Sutton. So it takes a hard man to kill a man with a knife, and it takes a hard man to survive in the world where they're living.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And so you have Liz being exonerated, and Tom does not go. And I'm actually very proud of him for that. I think it meant a lot for their relationship, because while yes, Tom wants to be with her, yes, he loves her, yes, he did this all for her, if he had shown up that night, it would have been putting pressure on her. Instead, he sits back and he waits, and if she had never come to him, she would have never come to him. But he waits with blood breathing down his neck, probably, and he just docks his boat. And I am convinced. I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, and that's fine. I mean, there's no saying one way or the other. I don't think that when Liz shows up on the docks that day, that's the first time she and Tom have spoken and or maybe even seen each other since she was exonerated. I believe that's a week after they let her go. If nothing else, I'm sure they spoke on the phone. But it's because you see such a difference. The time that you see them together before that, where they're physically together, is
In the restaurant.
in the restaurant. He's hesitant, she's hesitant, they're working towards something. You see them on the dock, she shows up, she stands there, she waits for him to notice, he stands up and just rushes her, and suddenly they're kissing and holding on to each other. It's a very familiar sort of touch that they have. And so I have a very hard time believing that they went from restaurant to docks without anything in between. And
I
so,
do. I do. I think that there is I think it's partly what you think, what you just said, that Liz had walked in his shoes. And I think that when I see that scene, I see that they both go in there. I like that she waits until she turns her badge, because to me that means her old life is gone. And that to me is one of those little symbols that tells me she drops her badge, ends that old life, and the first thing she does is starts her new life by going to him. And there is a moment when they both look at each other, and they're hesitant, and they don't go and rush into each other. They have this, the camera works very well because it's not a sharp focus at first, and then slowly the faces get into focus, and you see how they're without saying a word, without talking about it, they know it's over, and they know this is a new beginning. To me, that scene is perfection. As cinematography goes, as the colors, they're both wearing very dark, somber colors. This is a different thing. This is not the rosy undercover, because he was undercover, she was undercover. She was undercover in this, I do only the right things, and I'm not a criminal. No, I didn't steal things. I didn't grift it. I didn't do any of it. They were both playing a role. This is them, very much them.
and maybe it's just me because I have such
You
an
like
issue.
the fluff?
I do like the fluff, but I have an issue with her first words back in that new life to him, basically saying, "Babe, let's go have wild boat sex." Because those are her first words to him is, "Let's go, we need to get over your boat."
Mm-hmm.
And he's going, "Let me propose with a washer." I mean, which is so Tom. So
But
Tom, covered in
that is
soot.
very much so the relationship they've had. I mean, think about it. Who's the one who takes all the furniture out of the living room, and then and brings Chinese to recreate and just leave Ike, the lamp that didn't have the A for IKEA, uh, and he does this little thing, and the one that she's the one who jumps in the shower with him. He's the one that comes with a pamphlet for the weekend, to lift her spirits of the nice weekend they had. Uh, that's the way they've been.
And I'm not saying they don't have a healthy sex life and that Liz doesn't usually start that, but I just have an issue with her first words not being, "Hi babe, I've missed you," or "Hi babe, thanks for helping to save my life." It's, "Let's go have sex." It just, at the time, and part of this is still that mindset that I had at that point, because at that point when it aired, I was not convinced that Keen Squared would be the romantic end game. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. I thought they were back together. I thought that, it could be, and that I was hoping that it was. But it wasn't until later in scene 3 that I was like, and there we go. This has been the plan all along. And right then it made me very nervous, and I was just very nervous, and that feeling, even though it's been countered since, that the gist of the feeling still sticks with me. That it made me incredibly nervous that they were bypassing what they needed to focus on. And like I said, they've had that now, and so it's okay, but I don't know. It's always really bothered me that her first words back were "let's go have sex."
I think that I totally get it. I mean, to me, I totally get it. That because they're not starting a new relationship. I think that what that scene to me was Liz lives the part of her old life that don't fit her anymore, her badge. The safety of that badge and the gun. She's stripped of all that. She doesn't even look anymore the same. She has the blonde hair. She's wearing very different clothes. She's, dark, somber, very, they're both in grays and blacks. And to me, it means that Liz have understood. She's had a lot of conversation with Red about that life on the run and what it meant. To me, I'm happy with that scene as exactly as it was, because to me it's like, okay, we don't need to start all over. Let's take the parts that worked. And now I've been on the run. I've been afraid. I've been hunted. My partner, a man that I care enormously for, pointed a gun at me, and I knew he would shoot, because nothing to me says that he wouldn't have shot her. She felt that she was going to be shot, and that's the reason she stops struggling against it. She almost gets killed in jail, and she grew up. Now it's the real things, and she has no need of saying anything. I missed you. I missed you, and I want you, and
That's fair.
Liz is a very practical person. The romantic is wrong. Tom is a romantic. Liz is a practical.
And that is incredibly fair right there, and that's very true.
Yeah, and we see them in the little things, the notes and Tom taking the note, splitting it in half with all the good thing, changing the interrogation sign by exclamation. He has that whimsy. He's a literature guy. He's a whimsical guy. He's a romantic guy. He prepares a beautiful dinners with a beautiful table, and and the flowers and the
he sends
balloons.
her roses when he screws up. Yeah, he is that guy.
Yeah, and Liz is the practical go-getter, pragmatic. Let's do things. She doesn't have those flights of fancy. Liz is very much here now. This. I was happy with it, and it was a beautiful scene. It was and he takes a thing and he gives it the washer, which is an incredibly silly romantic thing to do. And I'm not a big romantic fan, but that one was funny, and it was great, and the fact that she doesn't accept, I think I'd like.
The really interesting thing though that a lot of people didn't catch, and I don't think I even caught it. I think that it might have been a non-author over on Tumblr that caught it. I don't remember for sure. When they're on the boat, when he picks her up and she wraps her arms around his neck, she still has the washer on her left hand.
Yep, I saw that. Yeah, so she didn't take it off.
Might not have accepted, but it wasn't a no.
No, it wasn't a no. He says maybe yes. And then we have that great scene when, at the same time that Red is basically warning him, Liz is getting beaten up. I would love to have seen the cold they get. And it wasn't, and that it wasn't going to be Nick's Pizza. So I have no idea who they got first or what, but I would have loved to have seen whether at the end of that conversation was Dembe saying, it's about Liz. and she's in the hospital, and they both rush there.
Yeah.
But that scene where Tom, Red tells him, "You're not going to marry my little girl," basically.
What,
Even though
because
he's
I didn't
fine.
ask for Daddy's permission? I loved it.
Yeah, I think that Tom has a fairly good idea now.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I think that he's questioned it for quite a while, and I think at this point he doesn't have proof, so he's not going to take it to her. But when it comes out, he's going to be like, "Yeah, I saw that coming."
Yeah, I have my little scene written in my head. And then Liz get beaten up, and Tom is obviously going and taking care of her.
And the funny thing is, he's not living there. He's not living there until he gets hurt. Because up until there's actually a point that he's referring to it as her place, her place, her place, and then all of a sudden it's our place.
Mm.
But like he's obviously got a key because she leaves him there to clean up, and so you assume he has a key and everything to be able to clean up after she goes to work.
Mm-hmm. And the lovely scene where when he realizes she's pregnant. That scene is, what he does is, to me, another one of those master scenes that he just sits and waits for her.
I don't know how he did it. I would have been going crazy, But yeah, he stays, he calls, he pushes off the which is interesting. If he'd gone that day, Red wouldn't have been able to cancel it. Wouldn't that have been interesting?
Yeah, well, that is one of the lovely little ironies, and I'm going to touch on that a little later as we go on. But yes, it's a very interesting scene, and also another Red parallel. He's holding the dog in exactly the same position that Red holds the ambassador's dog.
I just assume that's how people hold little dogs. I don't have little dogs. I've never had little dogs.
There are many ways.
I grew up with German Shepherds. You can't hold a Shepherd that way.
Well, you can try. I tried mine, and she wasn't happy about that.
Yeah.
I grew up with German Shepherds too, and he takes out that sonogram.
Yeah, and I had been waiting since they had shown that in season 2. I said, Liz is gonna find out about that someday. That was just perfect for him to show that and say, this was my hope. For the child that we were going to have, for the child that we will have. I mean, and you can tell it's such a nice mirrored image of when she asks him about pushing her to have a kid, and he goes, "We're married. Isn't that what married people do?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
and then you find out, far from that. That's what a lot of Tom detractors have to me, is an inability. They take everything that a character says literally, and they never go back. After you get new information, you have to go back and reevaluate your character. And that character that said that is a character that has kept a sonogram of a child they were adopting. And that has been his personal trophy, his little card of, I was loved once. I almost got a family.
An anchor, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he anchored himself to that life by carrying that.
Mm-hmm. A talisman is what Nav calls him. Yeah. You keep that close to your vest because that's almost like a protective thing. It's a reminder that at one time he was loved for himself, and that was like a defining moment in his life. I love that scene, and then I find interesting how Red takes his job out, and Tom is desperate, and he decides to go to Gina and get that stupid job. But I can't blame him. Can you? I don't think that anybody can.
Well, there are people that do, but no. When he did it, my response was, I know why you're doing it. I even knew from the writing point of view why they were bringing Gina back in. The whole point of Gina was to show that Tom had grown past her. That Gina was good for him. They were good for each other. They were probably terrible for each other, in romantic sorts, but they fit each other much better in their younger days. But with Liz, he'd grown so much that she doesn't even... this woman that grew up with him, that was his partner and girlfriend and lover, Gina doesn't even recognize him. She has no clue who he is.
And we also get a couple of very good information from Gina. We get a confirmation that is not related to Red or to anybody that Tom dumped her because of Liz.
Mm-hmm.
So that is an independent confirmation. Then we get the Major saying the same thing. So now nobody can say he was with her because of a job or this or that. No, it's very clear. He dumped Gina for Liz.
Yeah.
And Gina's still pretty sour about that.
Well, I mean, you could tell that when Gina attacked Liz in the bathrooms in season 1. I mean, when you go after someone, when you pull a switchblade on them, straddling them like that, I mean, the look in her eyes, I looked at her and said, well, that's a jealous woman.
I missed that one. I confess to have not believed that there was anything in there, and I was wrong. The interesting thing at the same time to me in all these things is we're starting to see the departure, and I do wonder, because we are seeing a lot of parallels, I do wonder if we're going back and forth between Red and Katerina, Tom and Liz. I do wonder if Katerina was really betray Red for a second time, or if Red never gave her the opportunity Liz did to Tom.
I don't know.
And that's where we are being compared is Liz give her this opportunity. Liz, we see Tom telling Gina, I'm not going to kill you. I just want to walk away. By the way, that woman likes it rough. He always says, why is this way always with you? So maybe that's what I keep telling you. Maybe the thing with Ressa was just foreplay. Maybe she really liked him.
I've had that
he just didn't read her.
Had that thought too. I have this mental image of Gina flirting with Wrestler and Tom looking over to her and going, stop toying with the Fed. And Gina looking at him and going, well, you got one. Why can't I have one?
That would be very funny to me. But yes, I mean, that is a great scene. And then Tom gets betrayed by Gina, which is an interesting thing because you're comparing Katerina with Tom, and now you're seeing Tom being betrayed by Gina.
I just want to pop in here with something that just sent the antis into a tizzy. The people just went haywire over the fact that Tom, quote unquote, let Gina kiss him consistently. That obviously meant he didn't care about Liz, he was kissing other women, and etc., etc. And I'm like, shy of, taking a swing at Gina, what did they really expect him to do? He was working with the woman, she was trying to get under his skin. Giving her a reaction would have given her exactly what she wanted.
Yeah, plus it's, you gotta get a little more sophisticated with these things. This is somebody who had a life with you, who's helping you. It would be a tremendously aggressive thing to do to someone, to say, stop. I think that what he does is actually more dismissive. I mean, just not returning a kiss. Yeah, not returning a kiss, just staying there like it doesn't mean anything. It sends the right message. It says, I don't care about this. I'm not going to push you away because you didn't do anything wrong to me yet. But, I'm not going to, get all crazy on you.
He was
it's like the moment with Red and Carla, and and Frank watching. Was it tremendously appropriate? No, but it was a moment between a man and a woman who have been married, and they're saying goodbye, and you can tell that there are feelings there, but the husband is there and he's looking away and ready, finally dismissing, and like he's gonna have his moment. So it's a little similar to that. You don't dismiss a relationship like, it's out. There is always going to be something for the person. And I think accepting and honoring that doesn't mean that you care still for that person in a romantic or sexual way.
Oh,
It just means there's a relationship.
And the point came down to when she asked him to run away with her and to take that life that they had had, to go back to it, to go with her, which would have given him an out with Bud if he had genus protection. I mean, that was his out. That was his easy way out. She was asking him to run. Don't put down roots, run with me. Which is probably what the two of them have been doing since they were teenagers. And he said no. And I think that when you compare that, looking at Tom's past, looking at who he is, how he reacts to things, compare that to the kiss, and you see the depth in the refusal to go with her.
Yeah.
And she turned around and shot him.
Yeah. I mean, that was the last, hey, say yes and I won't shoot him, maybe. There is also a point that at that moment, Tom is fighting for his kid, because he knows Liz is wanting to give the kid away, and he has to do whatever he must do in order to convince Liz not to give away the kid, that he can have the money, he can protect them. So this is high stakes. A kiss means nothing at this point. It's like, going crazy over him as Reggie kissing Amanda. It means nothing. This is our spies. This is what they do. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's the stakes are his kid going into the system, going into a possible life. And I mean, he's under no ideas or illusions that his kid is not going to have a life different than him in the system, that he will be a Liz. Liz wasn't in the system. Liz was left with a friend of someone, and that someone knew very well that Red was right behind him. So don't behave well, you end up in a gutter.
And I think that's something that people overlooked when the whole adoption situation came up, with Liz talking about potentially putting Agnes up for adoption, obviously before she was named Agnes. But I think that was probably what fueled Tom, was the fact that he grew up in the system. He grew up not only in the system, but in a bad way in the system. And there are plenty of great foster parents out there. There are fantastic ones out there, but there are probably some pretty rotten ones as well. I know
not
that
only that, even if they're very good parents, a child like Tom would not be your normal child. This is a child of spies, same as Liz. Not an easy child.
I was gonna say, and with the trauma that he probably had, having been taken, and nobody knowing to even deal with that, to even approach it, much less having done it. And so he had all of this going on, which would obviously develop some attachment, not non-attachment
disorders,
issues. Yeah.
Attachment disorders.
You've got that, and then, so even if he was with good parents, they probably didn't have the training or the know-how on how to handle him. And so, but that's what he grew up with. He doesn't, just as you said, he doesn't want that for his kid. Not when he's willing to take him, take the child. And I do wonder if push had come to shove, if he had to make a choice, if he would have
taken his child. He would have been Marvin Gerard.
I think he would have. And he would have, but he would have gotten away with it. And I think he would have given Liz up, which kills me to say it. And I'm so glad she didn't put him in that position, but I have to admit, I was really upset with Liz during that whole time. Like, I understand it in retrospect.
This wasn't my favorite one. Liz, in that moment, I I do get where she was coming from. Liz was very scared. I think Liz was revisiting some things, and I have a feeling, and I just want to go on record saying this, that when we find out the entirety of things that happened in that fire, we're going to see that this is highly relevant to why Liz wanted to give this kid for adoption. I think that she thought it was because of Red and her and his world, but I think that there is other things, other actually pretty more horrible things that we're going to find out about this fire and the situation and the reason why Liz wanted to give this child away. There is a couple of things in that whole is that Liz, however good is that relationship with Sam, and yes, she was taking and Sam treated her well. Well, for one, Sam knew very well Red was there because they obviously had an agreement and they have agreed not to tell Liz anything or whatever. I mean, we think is that Red is a father, but it may be something else that we have no idea what it is. And B, Liz wasn't alone in the world. Red knew exactly what Liz was. Liz was at no risk at any point in her life of something ever going wrong and finding herself in the streets. That was not the truth with Tom. Tom knew that he had Tom.
Yeah. He didn't. Liz had the foundation of people that loved her in her life. He did not have that foundation. Yeah, and I don't think that he wanted his child to grow up that way.
And this is the first departure that we have in the Tom, the first major departure. I mean, up until now, I think that the situation, Tom Katerina is progressing pretty much in the same direction. Not in the same direction emotionally inside, but in the same direction as action scenes from outside. So I think up until this reddest scene, like, oh my God, this is doing exactly what I did. She's falling for the same guy again. Just what I did with Katerina. I thought she was with me. I thought she had his allegiance to me. She was faithful and truthful to me. And, and I was mistaken. That's what he tells her at the wedding. Why? You don't see that your child is going to pay the price for the rest of her life? He's not talking about Tom there. He's talking about Katerina, and Liz still paying the price. And that is the first major departure in that, is that when Red realizes Tom wants you to keep the child because Katerina wanted to abort Liz. I think that Katerina didn't abort Liz because Red begged her not to.
Oh, I agree.
Wonder if it just like said, I will do whatever you want, agree to give you classified documents. Don't abort my child. And I think Katerina used that for her advantage. And then I think that however we want to see Katerina as being super good, I think Katerina used Liz. She used it with Rostov to cement that position. I have a feeling that Katerina used Liz for other marks, make them believe that it was their daughter and used Liz. And I think that when Red started to see that Tom wanted to keep that child, that was the first dichotomy that got him like, oh, whoa, not working well.
Well, I've said for a while that I think that Wrestler seeing Tom with Agnes is really what humanized Tom for Wrestler.
Yes.
And in a way, it could be for Red as well. And also possibly the fact that that's when he started digging into his past and found that he was his good friend's son.
Yeah, I think it has to have been some point in there because it makes sense that if your daughter is pregnant and this operative with unknown past is the father, you're going to try to find out anything that you can about them.
Yeah, because they already had Liz's past that was ready and willing to come knocking at their door. I'm sure Red wasn't willing to let Tom's past,
He
pop
had to
up
find
without
out
any
who he was.
warning.
And as soon as he saw, I mean, he has experience with documents and forgers. I'm sure that Tom's story is going to be fascinating. How on earth did he find himself in that system? Especially with what we are learning about what his father is supposed to be. It's going to be really fascinating. But that moment to me is pivotal. Is Red's face when he asked, Tom wants you to keep the baby?
Yeah.
Very, very important moment, not just for the relationship of Red and Liz and Red and Tom, but from Liz and Tom. I think that as we progress, we're going to see Liz making connections to those little pivotal moments and connecting them into a narrative that will give her what, her mother.
And so it was interesting listening to Liz talk about Agnes up until the point that Tom shot. But to that point, Agnes was my child. My child. I have to protect my child. I'm doing this for my child. And Tom would try to go, our kid. And she'd go, no, mine. And she shut him out again and again and again because she was scared. I mean, that's what it boiled down to. She was scared. She didn't want to trust anybody else to help her make that decision because if she did and it went wrong, then she was still going to hate herself. I mean, Liz is a control freak.
And this is Liz going back. This is a little up and downs, and this is Liz going back to, I control the relationship. I pull off the adoption. You take out the dog. We're out of milk. It's a control freak, and you do as I tell you.
Yeah.
We're not equal here. I'm more equal than you are.
Yeah. And after this was actually, we were talking about earlier that as of 3A, I wasn't certain that Keen Squared would be
I
in
knew
game.
that from 101.
I know, but it's the difference in having your heart in it and being a theorist. I will readily
Great,
admit
call
that.
me heartless.
That's not what I was saying. You know, that's not what I was saying. You're thinking
right.
with your head. I'm thinking with my heart. That's what I was saying. But the point where the hospital is the point where I knew it was okay. That I could start putting more and stronger hopes into Keen Squared.
Why do you think Red saved him?
I think it could be twofold. At the time, I thought Red saved him for Liz. Basically what he told her. You've got to make this decision. That he wasn't going, kind of like when he was going to put a bullet in his head at the end of season 1, and he let Liz make that decision. He was not going to allow someone else to take that decision from her either. He wasn't going to take it from her. He wasn't going to let anybody else take it from her.
But he didn't have to do anything. He didn't have to save him.
He didn't, but I also think that he found out that it was his friend's son. I do. I think because they have built up Howard and Red. And so I think that there are a lot of connections. I think those connections go a lot deeper than what we've seen so far.
Let's see. So Red saved him for a variety of reasons, is what you're saying.
I think so. Wait, it's layered? Yeah, I think it's multiple reasons there that he went after that. And also the fact he makes the comment in Kate May. He says, and you've watched it many, many more times than I have, so help me with the verbatim here. But he says, that he wasn't going to take a child's father. It was the child's father, all she had in the world.
It would have been a mortal sin.
Yeah, and so I think that Red has something there. He wasn't able to be with his child. That, I don't know. I think that maybe that'll come out more when we know more about Howard, but I think there are multiple reasons there.
Yeah. So we have that. I think that you're right. I think at that point he knew exactly who Tom was. I think that it was for Liz. It was not to leave a child fatherless, because that would have been a mortal sin. And I think because and to me the overriding reason in what changed his mind is Tom wanted to keep that child, and that put him in a very different category for Red.
Mm-hmm.
That humanized him. Is like for Wrestler was seeing Tom with Agnes. I think for Red was learning that Tom was fighting to keep his child.
Yeah. But what I was gonna say was that turning point for me personally, as a shipper, as someone watching all of this unfold, was that moment that he was unconscious in the hospital, and it parallels so nicely back to season 1, where she found the box and he's unconscious and he's got the tube down his throat and she's holding his hand and saying, "I just wish you were here to defend yourself. What would you say to me?" You know, and she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't understand. Because she doesn't know him at that point. She thought she did, but she doesn't, and everything's thrown up in the air. And here in season 3, she does know him, and he's in basically the same position, unconscious, not sure if he's going to make it. And even with Red, who is incredibly good at making it turning the argument on its head, and he starts fighting back, you know, that he doesn't have a right to raise that child. He doesn't have a right to be your husband. You know, it's very vicious, very, very forceful, and Red makes a good argument. He's very good at what he does. But Liz won't back down. You know, where in season 1, it was this wide-eyed, what if this happened? She knows exactly why he did it. She's not happy with Tom that he went to his ex-girlfriend and pulled a heist, but she knows exactly why he did it. He felt backed into a corner by Red because his job was taken away, and he was fighting for his child and for his family. She's well aware, and she fights for him, both with Red and with the cops. And it's, to me, when he woke up and
he knew where he was. He didn't have that lost. Oh, wait a minute! I gotta get in character again.
He did, because he didn't have to be in character. But she takes his hand there and just kind of collapses against him a little bit, and she says, you know, "You're in the hospital. Don't say anything. You've got to save your strength because I'm going to kill you later." And he just sort of chuckles at her, and it was that moment that I knew that all the worries that I had, that they were going to skip over and bypass Liz getting to know the real Tom, that was a false worry, that I was just too worried about it, and that they had handled it. And from that point forward, there were little hints about all the conversations that they had had. Some of them made it into the show. Some of them were cutscenes, like the conversation about where Agnes came from, which the conversation still obviously happened because they refer to it in canon in the show. But for those that haven't seen the DVD or the Blu-ray, she and Samara are talking just before the wedding, and she explains that Tom doesn't like the name Agnes because there was a little girl that bullied him in the block corner as children, whose name was Agnes. And so those were stories about his childhood. He's talked to her about his past. She knows him well enough at that point in the hospital, without knowing what happened, without knowing what was going on, or even what sort of shenanigans he'd been in the middle of. She knew why, and she trusted him with it. She was upset. It wasn't like she was just going, "Oh, Tom, it's okay, honey." It was, "You're stupid, but I know why you did it." And it was, I couldn't have written it better myself. It was so beautiful the way that it panned out.
See, I knew exactly from the moment that they opened their eyes and they're in the thing. I knew that was what's going to happen.
I wanted it.
It's my heartless theory. My heartless theory.
Sorry, that's not what I meant. No, but I wanted it to happen, but I've mentioned before that my
theory
fandom
is theory dictated.
And I didn't want to get my
to
hopes
be
up.
Skipped over, also to be done incorrectly. I think the writers, you gotta trust the writers. This is movie like quality the quality of the dialogue. Every time that I looked at another series on the TV, just because I'm bored or waiting for something, and I looked at that, I can't take more than 5 minutes. It's awful. It's painful to listen to the dialogue, to see the action, see all these dolls. I mean, for God's sake, those women, I'm like, they have no training. They cannot even punch, and they're there like taking down the bad guys. Oh my God, it's unbelievable. I can't take it. And the Blacklist, I have the utter trust in them. I have my moments of doubt, but mostly I've been very trustworthy with them. And and the parallels that kids have made from the very beginning. I sometimes I don't know what they mean. Sometimes I cannot even see them. I just know that I've been shown something that means something, and I just need to wait until I get the appropriate clues to put it together. But I know that the virulence of Red when he talks to Liz, like he's unworthy, trustworthy, that is not about Tom. That's entirely 100% about Katerina. Katerina was reckless, a love of life. Most people who have a love of life are also described as restless. She's, God knows what else that I think that she was unfaithful to him. I think she did a bunch of things to Red. And finally, I mean, somebody brought those men of the cabal. May have been her, may not, but probably was her. So Red is not really talking about Tom. He's really talking about his own experience. And I think that Liz is the first time that he's seeing, perhaps not what is doing that, but he's seeing that that's not Tom. And that's the first time she can say, that's not Tom. You don't know him. And that we go back to that when they're getting married. Do we have any major scenes before we go into the? Well, Liz decides to keep the baby, and now becomes our baby.
Yeah, it becomes our baby, and the huge deciding point there is the video from season 1. That of Tom talking about she's going to be a great mom. She really is. And it's such a beautiful scene because it's just yet another reminder, again, this was real. This moment, the child we were going to adopt, the child we're about to have, it is our child. I'm not going to be doing this alone. And I've commented before, I think on my blog before, that I wonder at times before, like if it clicked right there with her, that she always had in the back of her mind that Tom was just going to disappear someday. That he was going to run.
Well, I think that she had to have had that in her head because she's being told that her father abandoned her. And most people keep those stereotypes, man abandoned me, just because even if Sam didn't, Sam wasn't her father. So it wasn't that personal. It's like, there's something about me that make people abandon me.
And I think that's one reason she wanted to cling so hard to Kirk being her father, because if he'd been looking for her all this time, that meant she wasn't abandoned. She'd been taken, not abandoned. And I think that's something, I think that's a problem that Tom's having right now, is for him, there was a big hubbub about him saying the woman that abandoned me. I mean, but when you live 28 years with this understanding that you were abandoned, that's not something you just shake off. And the woman runs Halcyon Aegis. Are you telling me she doesn't have the equipment at her disposal and the manpower at her disposal to find a child missing?
I don't think that she did back then.
May not have, but I'm saying from Tom's point of view, when he was ranting to, about, when he was fussing about it and saying, this
yeah,
also, that's, I think that weighs on him, much like Liz's with her father abandoning her. I think that for him, he shuts it down. The
story in his mind.
Yeah, and he focuses on the future because of that. And
yeah, I think that there is a big deal there because we don't know. We know the sanitized version that Susan gives Tom. We have no idea if this is true. We have no idea what was the circumstances. Was she really looking at him? What was happening? Because for all we know, Scotty was like Katerina. She was an undercover agent. And maybe some other man thought that Tom was his kid. And for all we know, this man took a DNA test, not being read and not being crazy, and saw, oh, this kid is not my kid. Well, I'm not going to give it back. That woman is a bad woman. Put the kid in adoption. Drop him in with no papers somewhere.
Yeah. I mean,
We
there's
have
no telling how he disappeared.
no, and no telling who was looked for, or were they looking for him? Did they have the resources, or was he completely disappeared from the system? How they did that, but for Tom, I think the field was, as you said, disappeared, and we don't know the circumstances. So that's a very big moment for Tom. Is we're gonna keep my kid. That's his chance to rewrite his past. It's like what Liz wanted to do by being a clinical psychologist. Is having a kid to rewrite his past. Is to show that he's better. He can do better.
Yeah.
So they're keeping the baby. They accept her proposal. I love that moment. A lot of people hated it because Liz went on her knees. I think that was a very empowering moment for a woman.
And it
I
was
mean, she's
sweet,
not going to accept it. She's accepting it on her terms.
Yeah, and it was so sweet because as soon as he realized what she was doing, even with his bummed leg, with a bullet that he dug out of his leg, he dropped down to the floor with her. Immediately, as soon as he realized what was going on, he slipped off the chair and got on his knees with her.
Yeah. I think it was a beautiful moment, empowering, and that was that's Liz not being the ASCII, the puppet. It's Liz deciding, it's me who wants to get married to you, not you asking me and I accepting. That is me asking. And I think that there is a power that comes with it instead of waiting to be asked, waiting to say. It is her saying. And I think that is, to me, is more empowering. Why does it have to be the man who decides? That's what it is about, is, you're a thing to be asked, not a person who decides. So to me, that's more empowering as a woman. And those scenes with Gina and the major, it's like that is another confirmation. It's Tom loves Liz. He went to her because of love. He fell in love with her, left Gina. At this time, nobody can say, oh, but he's doing this. No, you're not going in canon. Canon says that's what he's doing. We're being shown it from many, many perspectives. So there is no reason to doubt at the time. And I used to have my things that Tom was working for Katerina. But after that, I had to let them go. There was nothing to support that. And you got to adjust theories as they come,
Yeah, because you get new information.
Theorist.
I'm never going to live that down, am I? You're never going to let that go.
That's good for at least 3 ones. And we get the wedding part. I mean, he's killed a major. And they made it so beautiful. Huh?
Gina
did it. Gina killed the major. He's burying the major. It's such a great scene because they're making us believe that he's not changed. And Red is, it's like they play with people. They play with the people who don't follow the clues, the non-theories that don't follow the clues and only follow the exterior. They're like catnip. You've been played by showing you Red telling you this guy don't change and he's burying the thing. And then he comes over and tells her everything about it.
Well, I made a comment after that episode in which I showed the parallels of it, and I think that's exactly what they were doing, is they were showing this is Red's point of view, and now we know, we're looking back on it and going, yeah, because that's what Katerina did to him. You asked earlier if it was possible that either Red never gave Katerina a second chance, or if he did and she screwed him the second time too. I don't think Red's the type of person, at least what we know of him now, and he might have been and got messed over, and that's why he's that way now. I don't think he gave her that second chance. I think that's something Liz has done with Tom,
I agree, because remember he says there are things that are unforgivable, and he goes into that by saying, Tom, after all he did, the lies, the humiliation, how can you forgive and forget? It's just I haven't forgiven and I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten. I'm just forging a
Forgive
way forward.
Yeah, forgiveness helps you move forward versus actually forgetting what happened. No. And that's the thing. And she shows that again and again. And I love that scene where he sits down and he says, and Tom doesn't lose control very often. He's just very much in control. And when he's not, like when he's nervous about something, he kind of just goes quiet. Here he's spiraling. He's rambling and he's nervous and he knows he has to tell her. And yet he also knows that when he tells her, he may and probably will lose the woman he loves and his child. He's about to lose them both. That she, you can see it in his eyes that he's pictured this scenario and has watched her stand up and leave, and he will never see his family again. And so he's telling her this and explaining it and basically saying, hey, I understand if you don't want to stay. And I remember at the time some of the people that don't like Tom were saying, well, of course he told her this right before the wedding. What else was she gonna do? And it's like,
saying no, goodbye.
I was gonna say, what do you expect? Was he supposed to wait until after the I do was said? I mean, no. This was the time to do it. There was no time before that because he was busy burying a body. Because what was he gonna do? Leave the dead body in their apartment? Let's go by and pick up our luggage, honey.
Or maybe call wrestling and say, hey, I have a dead body here. You mind coming and getting it? Yeah, I mean, he did. And it's funny because that gives us a beautiful opportunity to observe how to tie a body 101, as shown by Red and by Tom.
It really must. I think maybe Red had something to do with St. Regis. I don't know. Maybe he took a course or something.
I think that the Major, before did St. Regis, Major may have been one of the trainer in the Navy for undercover work. I mean, obviously he had connection, and he says he's the best in the of the kind. So the Major may have been, a CIA or a Navy, and he's not called the Major for nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's entirely possible that Red learned from him, and that's why there are too many things. They even tie them exactly the same way, with the feet standing out, the head, the around the neck is exactly the same. But at that point, we also see Red going and begging Liz not to marry, and the point that they got nothing to do. It's now we look back and we say, yes, this is Katerina, and we're doing that. And then we get the beautiful scene at the church where actually Red gives Tom the gun. And to me, that is, in Spy World, he's giving the blessing.
Well, it's that, and we talked about this on the Tom and Red episode that we did. It's both giving the blessing with the gun, and also Red could have gone with her out to that car. But he said, Tom, get her out of here.
Yeah.
It was Tom, do this, Tom, do that. It was very much if when the father gives the daughter away at the altar, it's saying, I've been protecting her, now it's your turn. That's exactly what Red said. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been protecting her, and here you go. I mean, in the realism of it, Liz needs no one to protect her, but, in the symbolic, sense.
With a 9-month-old or 8-month-old Jen Mormo's belly, yes, she needed to.
Fair. But I'm saying in general,
yeah. It's not that a woman needs to be protected, but in that world, that moment where they are, it was a beautiful scene. And then especially because it's coming from, don't marry him, he's a criminal, he will never change. And I think that was Red snapping back to the past, and this is Red snapping to the present. And Tom and Liz had that wonderful moment in the car. She's leaning out the window, shooting. And Tommy's like, what are you doing?
Well, he's had so many what are you doing moments, because when she goes out to get the ammunition, both he and Red are sitting there wide-eyed.
Petrified.
They are, because if they followed her, that's when the bullets would have come. They would have actually put her in more danger by following her than doing exactly what they did. They did right. But both of them were so terrified in that moment. And you could see the same thing when she's leaning out the window. He goes, Liz, what the hell are you doing? He couldn't have told her stop because she wasn't going to listen, and he knew better. But it was just like...
And he makes the jokes about the shotgun wedding, and you know, they can't touch what we have and all that. It's all those. Tom is a romantic. Tom is a joker. Tom makes Liz smile. Liz is heavy. She's always like she needs to be lightened up, and that is what Tom does beautiful for her. Always make her smile, always takes, you know, that edge off her. And then they work beautifully together in the room with very little time and almost no words. I mean, he goes behind the door, I guess, ready to take Solomon if he tries to take Liz. There are great moments there. And then we get to Agnes' birth. It's such a wonderful scene.
It was so, like, I didn't know if I just loved it or if it was so super cheesy with the music that they chose.
Well, because that was the point. I mean, it was a cheesy music. But, you know, there she is. She's dropped to the hilt. She's probably scared of giving birth. I think that I haven't given birth, but I imagine that most women are a little scared of giving birth for the first time. And, you know, there she is in a filthy nightclub. People are trying to kill her, abduct her or something. She's just being, you know, she has very little control over things in her life. And Tom chooses the one song that is guaranteed to make her smile.
Yeah.
Because it's cheesy
and I just love that they're sitting there, and he says, well, what did you expect it to be? And she says, I expected it to be magical. He goes, hold on. And she gets this look on her face like, come back. Where you go? Where the hell do you think you're going? You know, this panic for just a second as he's walking away. And then her face as the disco ball starts and the music starts, and it's like, oh, that's what he went to go do. Of course he did.
And she's even more drugged. And I find it funny because there's a moment they go on Red's face. And Red is also very scared. And I think that those are the little things that get him at the same time scared of Tom being Katerina, because it's probably the same kind of things that Katerina would have done. The crazy, they have that crazy, they have that flights of fancy that can make you smile. They're great scenes. And then the fake death, and that must have been a terrifying moment for Tom.
Yeah, because you know that even though they had the 5 minutes to plan this, Kaplan and Nick had a bit longer, but the Keens, they basically had a few minutes in which Kate walked in there and said, here's the plan. Do you want to do this? And they had to make that call.
She asked Liz. I don't think that Tom had much input except, yeah, whatever you want.
He was there. I mean, he was there, so you have to, you know, the assumption is that he was at least somewhat in on the decision making.
I think that he was, but I don't think that he was the, you know, if he had said, yes, let's do it, Liz would have said. And Liz didn't want it, she wouldn't have done it.
Oh, well,
Liz was the primary decision maker.
Yeah, I agree there. But, I mean, I do think he was in on the decision.
Oh, yeah. I imagine so.
But, I mean, because he was... they'd already made a point at the... when he was looking for the painkillers, that he's not trained for taking care of a child. Mm-hmm. That is not... Of all the things he's been trained for, that's not one of them. I think that probably terrified him. And I do wonder if it also worried him, because he's got so many connection issues, if he'd be able to bond with his own kid. Yeah, I wonder if that ever crossed his mind there. You know, that this little child is about to depend on him for everything, and what if...
I don't think so. I don't think it crossed, because he had such a paternal instinct already with that baby they were going to adopt. I think that was a blow to him. Liz broke his heart. And I think that for him, that was a big deal. So I think that he was, I don't think that he questioned that about him. I think he was puzzled by it, but I don't think that he questioned it.
Maybe.
But there's that lovely moment where he says, "I can't do this alone," which is the exact same words that he says to Liz when they're adopting. "I can't do this alone," and in there he is having to do it alone, having to pretend she's dead.
And there was also the lovely comment that Liz said in the Gina Xanatakos episode when she's sitting there with Red, and she says, I can't do this without him. I don't know
Mm.
what's going to happen. I can't. And
I feel
so,
like I'm drowning.
yeah. And so, I mean, these two have that between them. Basically, that I don't want to do it without the other one is what it boils down to. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. And in that moment when he says that to Red, I think that's genuine because nobody would have had a chance to reach out to him yet. And so he's working in a state of limbo of, yeah, it could have
Hmm.
worked, but he has no idea. So I think that's very genuine to him.
Yeah,
He's
that
preparing
moment is a yeah.
he's preparing himself for his wife to have never woken up and that he's about to raise Agnes by himself 100%. And I think that the point that you see him start to go and get involved in everything, like he's with Agnes at the hospital and everything when Red drops by, I think the point that he starts to go and get involved in everything is when he finds out Liz is alive. So he's like, okay, goal. Agnes and I are going to Liz. How do we get to that goal? We take out this person that tried to kill her.
Yeah,
Or
I
tried to
find
abduct her.
it's very interesting when Liz is dead because we find a lot of things about the inner workings of the task force when she's removed from them. We also find a lot of very interesting things happening with Tom. And Tom and Red in there are fascinating because that's Red is already seeing Tom in a very different light. And that is something that we're meant to think in Cape May that Tom told him to go away, but the truth is that we see later that he tells him, "Okay, where's Kirk? We have a deal. I let you take care of Agnes, and you let me help you take care of Kirk in a different way." So that father there is a father to a father connection that is not just Red the criminal with Tom the operative. Now they're connecting at a personal level, and I think that gets important as we go further along.
Yeah, I agree. Just to let you know, we're at an hour 50 right now.
Okay,
So,
so yeah, we should
but I
try
mean,
to.
we've got from there. Liz fakes her death, and I mean, yeah, there's some things through there. I mean, but they're separated. I mean, he's
Mm.
fighting to get back to her in his own way, and he does what he has to get back to her. And
I think that he went too a little too early. He should have made sure that Kirk was dead. But at this point, all of this is and we go into the Kaplan thing and the Cape Gate is like Kate Red tried telling Liz that he wasn't the only reason she was endangered. She just can't listen because Liz never believes anything that she doesn't find out for herself. And in that, we go of when they get Liz back. I mean, they find out they have that lovely get together back in Cuba. It was such a beautiful scene with a baby and all that. And then they get separated, and Tom starts to take residence in the trunk of a car.
poor guy, duct taped again.
Mm-hmm.
and and I love the parallels there of them fighting for Agnes. It's so obvious the way they have it. I mean, they're both so desperate, and it's really really beautiful the way that's set up with how much those two are willing to give. And so you have fighting for them. Tom's lengths he's willing to go. I mean, and I loved that conversation with Kate in there, in which again we see that he feels remorse. It's not. I don't think it's so much that he feels remorse for Nikos directly,
For the pain
but
caused to
for the
Kate.
pain. Yeah, exactly. That he feels guilty because he caused pain to Kaplan. And so, I mean, a lot of this stuff we went over the
Yeah.
course of the episodes. And so, I mean, just to kind of touch on this, it's,
But the next big moment we have with them, what would you say it is? When
when they come back together, when Red and when Wrestler and Baz and Red drop Liz off at the safe house, and she walks in and Tom's looking at the little cardboard book, the little book there, and she walks in and they just wrap each other up, hold on to each other, and he promises that they're gonna find her, they're gonna find Agnes, and that's
in just in looking back now from 408, looking back then, we can see the parter of Red in treating. He is, however, you think that there is not much in the Red and Liz growth. Red is trying his best to treat Liz as an adult as much as he can. He's calling her Elizabeth for one, not Lizzie.
Well, I think it's also that he's incredibly hurt by everything that happened. I think that he, as much as he would like to be able to separate himself from his emotions when it comes to Liz, he can't. And he's hurt. And I think the Elizabeth is also something he does when he tries to put distance between them. I mean, it's just the way he says it during that time. Lizzie is a pet name. Lizzie is. It's what he called her as a child. And it's something only the people closest to her. There are only two people that call her Lizzie, Red and Tom.
Mm.
The man that was her father as a small child that she doesn't remember being her father, and the man she loves. Only two people.
I think Sam calls her Lizzie too.
Yeah, but okay, so her
Three men.
father's.
Yeah, her
but
father's in that.
but Sam's been dead since season 1, so.
And then we have a very interesting moment happening as when we see that Liz being out of touch with reality, and we have talked a lot about that in the episode, how Tom is the in there. He's like, no, she's not in the next room. A strange man has him, and God knows what she's going to do with him. What he's going to do with her. um I find very interesting the change there, that she's able to say, I'm sorry, and I understand what you're doing. Those are a lot of growth in there.
Absolutely, and I think that goes back to her taking a step back and kind of getting into his shoes and going, if the roles had been reversed, what would I have done? I would have gone after her. If she had had that contact, if it had been something from his past coming up that had nothing to do with her, besides the fact that, they share a child and are married, they're family, but nothing out of her past, all
Mm-hmm.
his past, and he was getting emotionally involved in it, she would have done the same thing. She would have taken that more direct step, that
And
more
I
aggressive
find it
step.
interesting there that Red is never one to say, oh yeah, Tom, I told you about Tom. No, he's like, how cruel of Kirk to do this. And the implied thing is, I would have done exactly what Tom did.
Yep. And I
Um,
think you would have.
and then we go back to Liz taking a couple of steps back when she is with Kirk in the hospital, and she's deciding on her own to go through a procedure to try to save Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know why they have to do that, because they have to show the point where hello, you're not the daughter.
Yeah. But, I mean, I feel like Liz gets very caught up in her own head a lot of times. She does, it always takes her a few beats to be able to put herself into someone else's shoes, which is funny, being a profiler. But, it's...
But she says she's a narcissist.
Yeah. And she acknowledges to Tom that she understands why he's worried, and I think she does. And I think she understands that he's having an emotional reaction to that fear there. And so she just goes with it.
And then we get that lovely scene.
Yeah.
Tom, Liz. I love that scene.
Well, okay, so before that, I know we need to be wrapping things up, but there's that lovely scene of them just walking down the hospital corridor. It's all of this has just happened. You know, he could be really angry at her at that point. Yet he goes and gets her a cup of coffee. You know, and comes and consoles her, walks with her, talks with her, consoles her after everything. It's just Tom to a T. And so he's able to put himself into perspective a little better after that.
What about the conversation? Because we haven't talked about the conversation and Tom not wanting to. I think that that's the way they're going to go with Tom, is that he's going to find, he's going to need to find his roots. I have a lovely little mind thing going on in which Tom this time, because after seeing everything that happened in 408 and see that, you know, the options are closing, that what Kirk said only applies to Red, and Red gave up his life to go save. And I find interesting that Tom goes actually and try to save Red. At that point, it's not about saving Liz, it's about saving Red. I have this little scene in my head going in which he goes and asks and tells Red, well, I want to marry Liz, so I'm asking your permission. And Red tells him, well, that's going to have to wait until you know who you are.
Be interesting. I personally think that Liz is going to encourage him to do it. That's where I think it'll come down to. That, you know, in part, you know, so we know what we're up against, and in part so that Agnes, you know,
doesn't grow up without a family.
Exactly.
She has a family.
Yeah. And so anyway, then we've got the wonderful scenes of Tom and Liz back and forth.
I love those scenes. I can't wait to get to them.
And so I did love that.
It was a fun shout out to that funny video they made.
That Twitter video that they did.
Oh yeah, it was very funny and it worked perfectly well in there.
It did. It was perfect. And I remember at the time going, that sounds so familiar. And then you brought it up on that podcast, and I went, oh.
That's what it is. Here's my memory. And I'm like an elephant.
But I love the way every turn, you know, where's Tom? If he's dead, I swear, if he's dead, it's like after all of this, if you killed my husband, you know. And how protective they are of each other. It's great. It's something I very much enjoy about the two of them, is how hard they fight to protect each other. Because, and this goes back to something that at the core I support between the two of them, is that they have to have an equal for their partner. Both individuals do. Especially Liz. Liz cannot have a man that she can walk over. A man that can't keep up, that will just get swept along and everything. And because someone like that, someone like who Tom pretended to be in season 1, would either be dead or running for the hills by this point. And she has to have someone like Tom really is.
Who's able to shoot him up.
Yeah, who is able to keep up both on a physical, intellectual, all the levels, be able to keep up with this. And that's the fall finale. Once again, just showed that, you know, she's getting kidnapped and fighting hard and beating back. He's chasing down the ambulance and hijacks the car.
And then he trusts Red in what they need to do. So those, I mean, because I think that the relationship of Liz and Tom, and that's what and that's where you and I differ enormously, is that you look at them from the character and from them individually. Well, I've always said, and haven't I said it all the time, Liz and Tom exemplify everything in the Blacklist. You cannot even hope to understand the Blacklist if you don't, and I'm not saying you have to like them together, but you have to understand them. Because if you don't, you don't understand Red at all. Because Red is proceeding from that enormous hurt that was Katerina in his life. It was everything. It was a woman he loved. It was his heart, and she betrayed him in some way, or he thinks she betrayed him. So I have a feeling that even if Katerina is alive, I don't think that Red is the forgiving kind that will give like Liz a chance to explain, like, tell him like, save your strength because I need to kill you later. Meaning we're gonna talk about it.
I'm hoping that he's forced into a situation working with her and the truth comes out. And I think it's not like if she comes back, he's going to be like, oh, let's have a chat, let's grab a glass of wine and talk about this. It's going to be one of those situations where they're forced into a situation they have to work together to protect Liz, to protect Agnes, one of those.
The same thing is like that we got this lovely family reunion at the end of 4-8. Exactly. I think, because now we're working towards, because now Liz and Tom is now Liz, Tom, and Agnes. So you're incorporating this family. The Blacklist, I always said, is a family love story, and you're going to incorporate them. And I think that when you do those final crossovers, you're going to see also Tom's parents incorporating in here, and it's the reconstruction. That's what Red means by My Way Back Home. It's getting that family back, and now that family includes Tom's parents.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Like yeah.
The in-law being Scotty.
And I know that you're not, for you, and that I was actually reading at some maps, and because I keep having in my head that maybe Tom and Liz are related, not just that they knew each other, that they may be related, they may be cousins or second cousins. Actually, it's not illegal. It's illegal in Texas, but you know that all over the world it isn't.
Yeah, but it's still squirm worthy. Like that's gonna make viewers on NBC squirm pretty much.
It's a regional thing. I mean, there are countries in which is out loud. There is countries in which is legal. And there are some that don't even blink at it.
Yeah.
I don't know. There is something about this whole thing that I can't pinpoint.
I don't think so, but that's one of those things that we will see when we get there. And so, it's the Blacklist. Anything could happen, I suppose. Okay, so we ended up. I mean, and that's the wrap up for the 3.5 seasons of the Blacklist and the Keens so far in 3 episodes. But in ending, like you just said, it's so funny because online it's gone from Keen Squared to Keen Cubed. Has been the the new name for, because it very much it's that family now. It's Agnes is the Keens include Agnes now. She's not going anywhere, and
she's not going anywhere. Tom is not going anywhere. He's just gonna go get a job, and I don't know why people say he's gonna leave her in D.C. Halcyon is in D.C. Gray Matters is in D.C. Well, the D.C. area. He's not going anywhere. If everything, he just go get a job, and well, it's a little weirder job. But I was actually watching Frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Not Frozen. Ice Age, the frosting part, and I kept thinking about the Keens as I was watching. See, that's how weird, you get involved in the Blacklist.
It's okay. I watched Tangled and thought of the Keens. So.
Yeah, and I thought about the lovely mammoth wanting to be a possum, and it didn't work because as much as it was great for her understanding the possums, she wasn't a possum. And I think that the Keens trying to be Elizabeth Keen and Tom Keen, it's them trying to be possums. They can't be.
I've never actually seen Ice Age, so
sorry. It's a elephant race.
I know the gist of it.
Yeah.
But And it looks
But
really cute. I've just never gotten around to it.
it is very cute. I find it funny, but is that mammoth trying to be a possum that I don't think it will work. And I know that I know when you go into there, you like the Tom Keane and Elizabeth Keane, and we choose, but you can choose to a certain point and that's not who they are. And I think that the Keane wedding is going to happen with Christopher Highgrave and Elizabeth Reddington.
We'll see. We'll see.
That's my prediction.
Yeah, we
And
differ
that
on
wraps
that
it.
one. And that's
Well,
okay. Because
yeah.
guess what? One of us might be right.
Or
We
no.
might have somewhere in the middle, or we could both be dead wrong. Who knows?
It's a blacklist. Yep. And so I think that wraps up our podcast on Tom and Liz. And we will go over the questions next week because there's a lot of material to cover here. So next week, in the next episode, we will tackle the post office in relationship to the Keens. So there's going to be a lot of fun, and we hope that you follow us.
Yep, and you can catch us on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube to listen to us. And feel free to leave comments on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. And we are always around and answering questions. So thanks so much for listening, guys. And
Bye-bye.
And we will be touching on the task force next week. And
Yes.
so for all of those that have been asking me about Samar and Wrestler and everybody else, that's next week. We're excited.
Yes, we are.
All right. Have
See
a
you
good week,
next
guys.
week.
All right. And have a good Christmas and Hanukkah and anything else coming up. Bye-bye.
Bye.